Right, so today is the 15th of February 2021. My name is Kwame Owusu Danso. Thank you very much for joining Pan-African Television. Thank you very much for joining the morning show, and thank you very much for tuning into your most authoritative program. I'm super excited to come your way with the morning show. Now, let me first of all apologize to you for coming to you late. I don't know. I think now I have to leave my house at 5 a.m. because the traffic situation is so unbearable. Yeah, you leave the house at 6, expecting that by 8 you'll be here, and then, you know, it gets worse by the day. So maybe I need to devise a strategy, leave my house at 5, and then I'll get here on time. But I apologize. That should not be an excuse for bringing the show to you late. I apologize regardless. Guinea records first Ebola death since 2016. So this is not coronavirus, so this is Ebola. So just be minded by that. Guinea records first Ebola death since 2016. Ghanaian Times helped us with this African story, and it's on page 5 of Ghanaian Times newspaper. 1992 Constitution, cause of mistrust among political parties. And I decided to add this story because of the dimensions, and I know that Mr. Heneku would love to particularly, you know, be very engaged in this particular conversation because it has got to do with the Constitution. And also that whether or not this very Constitution that we are talking about is the reason of the mistrust that political parties have developed amongst themselves. And the political parties and their followers have, you know, developed over time amongst themselves. We will try and find out the elements to which this particular assertion has been made. COVID-19 vaccination plan. Government estimates 295 million Ghana cedis for 20 million people. 95 million Ghana cedis for 20 million people. It's interesting, but I'm coming. After Kennedy says Supreme Court ruling is unjust, and then we will add this story to it. A 33-year-old KNUST student who was picked up by the state security over alleged threat to Supreme Court. This gentleman, I think, schools in the best school in Africa, KNUST, and then went on Facebook to issue threats against the Supreme Court judges on grounds of what he believes to be unfair and unreasonable, you know, striking out of applications that have been made by the petitioners in respect of the ongoing election petition case. I don't know why he sought to do that. I don't know whether he didn't get wise counsel, because if a matter is in court, you are barred from making commentaries, and not to even go to the extent of, you know, threatening to burn, for instance, the Supreme Court, etc. But we will find out whether or not freedom of speech comes into play in this issue, and whether or not that also has its own, you know, consequences, and that gives or brings to the table a lot of responsibilities flowing from same. So the fact that you have freedom to express yourself does not mean that the freedom is absolute. The freedom comes with its attendant consequences, which must be very, very crucial in all of the conversations that you as an individual will be having. Particularly also when, if you are not careful and you make some remarks about ongoing court case, which may prejudice the outcome of the case, you can be cited for criminal contempt. And so I think that these dynamics ought to be brought into the fray for us to have an expansive conversation relative to this particular issue. These are the topics that we have tabled for conversation this morning. I'm excited to have in the studios with me Mr. Justice Akufu Heneku. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
I'm always excited seeing you in the mornings. Thank you very much again for your time. Mujib Abdul Rahman is also here. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
I trust you're doing very well.
I'm fine.
Fantastic.
It's Mujib Rahman.
Oh, not Abdul.
You want to add me the Abdul?
You know that. Okay, anyway, Mujib Rahman.
Yeah.
Apologies. Mujib Rahman.
Yeah.
Mujib Rahman.
Yeah.
Sheikh.
I've not read there because Sheikh, you just don't give your Sheikh. It's a title you earn.
Okay. Delali, small boy danger. Sawapo, good morning to you.
Good morning, Kwame.
I trust you're doing well.
I'm great.
Very great. Now, these are the topics that we've tabled for our conversation. I'm starting off with the issue regarding Ebola in Guinea. And Mujib, I'm sure you're pretty surprised as I am.
Yeah.
And one would have thought that,
I thought now it's gone.
you know, and one would have also thought that the only thing that we have to grapple with
is
coronavirus.
Coronavirus.
But it appears, you know, it appears Ebola is very upset.
Why?
Ebola is upset. Say, I thought I was the dangerous one. I thought I was the one who had all the name. Now, COVID, you want to take away my shine?
Yes.
No, I got to come back.
No, but in real sense, Ebola is more dangerous.
That's the point
than COVID.
That's the point I'm making.
But now, with COVID is the widespread of COVID.
That's the whole
COVID
point.
is around the world.
That's the point I'm making.
Ebola was limited to
specific places. Precisely, it is precisely why Ebola is upset.
Yes. Okay.
Because Ebola said, "Oh, I was being charitable. I was being charitable. You know, I decided not to cause havoc around the world. I decided to stay in Africa. And cause damage to Africa. COVID says, well, my big brother Ebola was very discriminatory. It appears Ebola only knew Africans. But that for me, I will punish the whites. So they are punishing the white more. Anyway, but I just wanted to you know, simplify the issue for us. What I'm trying to suggest is that Ebola has come back and is in Guinea and it has killed somebody in Guinea, and we know how it spreads. You know, like wildfire. It's crazy. How do we now have to? And I'm sure there's coronavirus in Guinea as well.
I'm for coronavirus.
So how do we? My God, goodness gracious. So how do we now deal with the nuance of coronavirus and that of? This is serious, but World Health Organization says they are moving in.
What I want to say on this matter is that I think that when it first broke out in those countries, and at a point I think they were able to manage it through the world was able to get a vaccine and then cure for it, so they were able to bring it under control. So I think maybe now, I don't know, but I think that will be able, they should be able to handle that because of the past, because it was there and then they managed to get vaccine and were able to cure it, and then we are back to normal. Now it is coming again. So I think that it may not be difficult as compared to COVID. Now we are struggling. After having found the vaccine for COVID, now they are talking of a variant now in a different form, so which is now taking the scientists very, very difficult. So I think that, but it's unfortunate. But I think that I don't know what would have been the causes of some of them. But this is just to tell us that we have to very, very alert. That we all thought that by now Ebola has gone and it's a thing of the past, and now we are seeing that somebody has lost his life, and it means the traces is still there in the country, in Guinea. So we have to be very careful. So if they don't manage it well and it also escalates to a point, coupled with COVID, and I think that the consequences will be dire. So I will urge, because there are vaccines for it and there are cure for it, I think that the authorities in Guinea has to act and act timeously to prevent it. And don't let it spread.
I agree with you on that. But also, it's not just about the application of the vaccine. It's about the management of the situation. And I think which is why World Health Organization has been very involved in this particular issue from the outset. I mean, when it broke out, they decided to just move in and all that. I just wanted to bring that to attention. Mr. Naku, let me come to you respectfully.
Good morning to you, good morning to my co-panelists, and good morning to the viewers of Pan-African television. Well, I think that it is the problem of development. I also believe that within the context of the problem of development is the weak public health systems that we have. This Ebola is not specific to Guinea. It has been breaking out of late in the Congo DR, Democratic Republic of Congo. And you realize that Democratic Republic of Congo has a peculiar problem of wars and underdevelopment. With Guinea, over 11,000 people died in the last Ebola outbreak, some years back. And some vaccines were, brought about or invented to fight against this Ebola. So you ask yourself, what is the problem? And now, of course, the pandemic of coronavirus has almost taken our eyes off the ball. But we still have certain chronic diseases which are persistent in tropical Africa and elsewhere. We have malaria, we have cholera, we have guinea worms. In Ghana, we are lucky we were able to eliminate smallpox, we were able to eliminate elephantiasis, yaws, and other widespread diseases, and probably sustain it. But that disease in Wa areas, CSM, is still wreaking havoc.
Yeah.
You understand? And this all has a connection to the weak public health system and the problem of sustainable development that we have in Africa. So it is not enough to just have a vaccine. It is not enough to do a fire, I mean wildfire fighting with it, and that is all. What we need to do is to have a plan, a long-term plan, so that we can bring closure to some of these diseases. What causes Ebola? What causes this kind of widespread diseases? Can we look for palliative solutions to it instead of always looking for curative solutions or always relying on curative solutions to these kind of diseases? I think that the Guinean authorities took their eyes off the ball. They had solutions to it. Instead of fighting, especially at the political level, to change the constitution for the president to have a third term with all the unrest with regards to riots and electoral problems, everything, they should put their eyes on development. There should be healthcare right up to the community level. For example, when this coronavirus came to Ghana, we were able to raise certain funds, whether from the Bank of Ghana, from the Stability Fund, and from the World Bank. Did we take part of that money to invest in infrastructure?
I was actually...
and when we are talking...
There's a specific topic in respect of COVID-19 in Ghana. So I don't want you to put out all the meal.
Yes.
Because we need to leave some for...
Yeah, what I really want to know, whether even in Guinea, because when we're talking of infrastructure, it is not only brick and mortar.
Absolutely, yeah.
Here we are told that, there are no hospital beds. Does it take rocket science to make hospital beds? Can't we make hospital beds in Ghana? Why didn't we invest in it? Did the Guinean authority invest in the health system to be able to fight Ebola? Because Ebola is quite devastating. It is contagious. And it is devastating. You understand? It wipes out whole families, etc., etc. And we have seen it. We saw it in Guinea. We saw it in Liberia. That is in Sierra Leone, in the Mano River Basin. So, for the life of me, I would blame the lack of sustainable development, especially in healthcare, for the resurgence of Ebola. And once we realize that it has been quite sporadic in the Congo DR, then we should realize that the disease has not been wiped out in Africa. And so we should all be alert to it. I hope the Ghanaian authorities are still alert to it.
Yeah, but there's an interesting dimension to this conversation about Ebola. And I think that this dimension may as well find proper expression in how we deal with COVID-19, etc. And this is just a research that was prepared for me right now. But it's talking about how this particular outbreak starts in Guinea, for instance. And it says a nurse who worked in a health center in Gweke, near southeastern city, died on the 28th of January, and her funeral was held 4 days later. And then media have captioned some simple techniques that can help prevent the spread of Ebola. It continues to say that community funerals, where people help wash the body of the person who has died, can be a key way of spreading Ebola in the early stages of an outbreak. So the idea is that when a lady died, you know, some of them, of course, went and washed the body, they buried her 4 days later, etc. I think this may have contributed to the spread of Ebola in Guinea. So I just wanted to bring that to our attention, that sometimes when we are having conversations, we look at the issues without necessarily preferring some solution or some advice, really, to people who are watching us. I just wanted to bring that to our attention.
The existence of government
Yeah.
is to ensure the well-being of its citizens. And so it makes laws, it has been given the right to make laws and bring about rules and regulations which regulate the society, regulate our interpersonal relations and the relations with the state and other actors within the state. For example, in Ghana, we have been limited to 25 persons per funeral. Are we enforcing it? I mean, why is the police and other law enforcement agencies in existence? They are in existence to enforce rules and regulations which the government or the state enacts. So over there, this is not the first time that we know that you can contract Ebola through this means. Moreover, the lady was a frontline worker. Again, this is not the first time a contagious disease has happened in Africa, and we know the protocols which guides us in disposing of the corpse of people who are sick with those contagious diseases. So there's still the fact that sustainability is a big problem for us. We always relax when the problem seems to have died down. We forget about the rules, the regulations, the laws, enforcement, everything, and just believe that, nature will preserve us, probably.
Well, you're still watching the newspaper review segment on Good Morning Africa, Pan-African Television, with me, Kwame Owusu Danso. Let me remind you, for those of you who are first-time viewers, that you can follow the show on Facebook, which is facebook.com/Pan-African Television. Kindly share the feed so others can get the opportunity to watch the newspaper review segment as well. You can follow me on Facebook at Kwame Owusu Danso. You can follow me on Instagram at Kwame Owusu Danso. You can follow me on Twitter at Kwame Owusu Danso. And on Clubhouse at KO Danso. So that we can, have several other conversations on those platforms as well. Now, Delali, I think Mr. Enaku made a very important and a significant point regarding how we deal with some of these issues, and the fact that obviously everybody knows that we are in the negatives when it comes to healthcare and infrastructure. And he opined clearly that we assume that when we talk about, what's it called, infrastructure, we're looking at the brick and mortar aspect of it without necessarily looking at all the other things that follow. So for instance, if we are saying that we don't have a lot of beds in our hospitals, we may necessarily have maybe some schools that will be operational, but we can create the beds, put them in the schools, and treat people in those facilities. So why do we wait for the things for the thing to get out of hand, and then we come back complaining that, we don't have enough hospitals? Then the president will come and make a promise, which promise he knows he cannot fulfill, to say, I'm going to build 88 hospitals, etc., etc. That's just by the way. That's just by the way. No, it's not. You give timelines. You give timelines.
Don't rub it in. You see, and the 88 was not to be built last year when COVID started.
All the timelines.
Oh, no.
Mr. President.
But I am here. I'm telling you the process is ongoing.
I'm not. We're talking.
If you listen to the Minister of Health designate.
Hold on. We're talking about Guinea. When we come back to Ghana, I'll show you proof of what I'm saying. That we had clear timelines as to the execution plan that was given by government in respect of the 88 hospitals. I'm not going to belabor this with you. We'll come to it, and then we'll bring the issues out.
But it's not part of the topic.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, COVID-19, we're going to discuss COVID-19. So, I mean, and it's clearly stated here, Delali. And I think Mujib also made a very important point. He says that sometimes when, and I think it was Mr. Eneku, sometimes when the issue happens and it dies down, we tend to forget about it, right? We don't really, because it tells us that the new outbreak is in roughly the same area where the epidemic began in December 2013. given the cross-border trade between Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone, and their relatively weak healthcare systems, and I think Mr. Eneku, I think he also spoke about weak healthcare systems, there's concern the outbreak could spread. There's concern the outbreak could spread. And this has pricked the conscience of George Weah, for instance, to put his health professionals on high alert, to let them know that, listen, this thing is rearing its head and it has the potency of spreading across, and we may not be able to deal with the dramatic, diseases that are very devastating. So let's hear from you on this issue.
Kwame, good morning, and good morning to your cherries viewers, and good morning to my big bro, Mujid. Happy New Year to him and Mr. Heneku. The truth is, the issue about Ebola is not a novelty. But what makes this particular issue about outbreak quite very serious is the fact that this is a new strain, Ebola, that has emerged, to the extent that virologists believe that there's a possibility that this one could mix with the old strain, and that could pose as deadly to the human race. And it's also a wake-up call to we Ghanaians and those within the African continent to be on alert. I've always maintained that pollution, they say, is localized, but the effect is global. And we have to take an experience with respect to what happened relative to the outbreak of COVID-19 in China. When the outbreak happened somewhere in December 2019, a lot of Ghanaians thought that we're almost about, we are like 15,000 miles away from China, and for that matter, it's none of our business. But 4 or 3 months down the line, March 2020, Ghana recorded its first case of COVID-19. And I want to associate myself with what Mr. Heneku said. I think it's a high time as a continent or as a country, we have to be proactive than becoming reactionary. The question is, what measures are we going to put in place to ensure that in the events of Ebola outbreak in Ghana, how do we intend to deal with it? Are we humble enough to go back and take certain strategies that was embarked upon by the previous administration when there was an outbreak of Ebola within the continent? And it's also very instructive that as a country, looking at the global state we find ourselves in. Now, once something is happening in another country, you cannot immune yourself from what is happening in another country. I mean, Ebola has taught us, COVID-19 have taught us that there's always a ripple effect with respect to what is going on in another country, the possibility that we might be one of the victims as well. So what measures are we putting in place to ensure that we don't become a victim? And the issue about COVID-19 has really exposed us when it comes to our health infrastructure. And that is why we have to rededicate ourselves when it comes to our commitment as a country, when it comes to improvement of our health infrastructure. Kwame, I just read a statement emanating from the Ministry of Finance. I believe you've chanced upon it, where the finance minister is currently, I think he's gone to the US to go and, for further medical checkup, post-COVID-19, complications. The question I always have to ask myself is, how many Ghanaians can afford that, services? I mean, we have a lot of Ghanaians who have also suffered from post-COVID-19 complications. But unfortunately, they are unable to seek this further medical treatment outside Ghana. So what we must be mindful of is this. We should not, engage in policies having in mind that it's only meant for the ordinary Ghanaians. We should also be conscious about the fact that all of us can just be a victim of whatever outbreak that emerges. That is why once upon a time, when people touted that the University of Ghana Medical Center was a Photoshop, and whether by fortunately or unfortunately, whether God in his own infinite wisdom wants to expose people of their duplicity, COVID-19 strike, and the same Photoshop facility is where those who made those statement, unfortunately, found themselves. That is where they were treated. So this is a national call. This is a wake-up call to Ghana as a country. That looking at what has happened, within the group. I mean, once you deal with this particular pandemic, another one sprang up. We are even yet to deal with COVID-19. And like to associate myself with my two brothers, Ebola is more deadlier than COVID-19.
Yeah.
The only difference between maybe COVID-19 and Ebola is the way of transmission. COVID-19 transmission is more what do you call it? It transmits easy than compared to Ebola.
No.
I mean, Ebola, it's I think through the
Ebola is
in terms of
more-
transmission.
And kill
Yeah,
No, I'm
yeah.
not talking about killing. I'm talking about transmission.
Okay.
Yeah, Ebola. I mean, through
but-
blood.
No,
coming
but
into contact with blood and stuff.
Ebola, I think it's about the same thing. Oh.
Yeah, but you see, COVID, taking personal responsibility
Yeah.
helps you.
Yeah.
But
Because
Ebola,
Ebola, once you're even in the vicinity,
Vicinity,
if you're not careful, you know.
So for me,
And you know the funniest thing, at least with COVID, you can, for instance, if you touch something by mistake, you can actually use hand sanitizer and things to wash.
Yeah.
But Ebola, once you touch it, you are going with that.
so for me, Kwame, this is the time all of us as a country, devoid of our political inclination, let's come together and have a common ground and know that COVID-19 or Ebola or any future pandemic has no discriminatory, what do you call it, tendency to say I'm going to discriminate who an NDC person, who an MPP person is. And I think one of the things that we have not done as a country is to build upon successive gains that we have made relative to medical infrastructure. As we speak, I listened to the health minister when he appeared before the vetting committee, and some of the answers that he gave. For me, I wasn't inspired about some of the answers. Like he was saying some of the things that Mujid was so much in a hurry to downplay, the relative to the 88 hospital that we were promised.
Yeah, we're going to go there. We're going to go
where
there.
the exact location of the hospitals, myself.
Yeah, we're going to go there. We're going to go there.
So-
let me, yeah.
And
So
the reason
conclude.
why we need to be very careful
Yeah.
is it could happen to any one of us. We could find ourselves in a remote village. And if we are struck down by any medical condition, the only means we can survive is a proximity to a medical facility. And that is why it's quite instructive that
The first human case in an Ebola outbreak is acquired through contact with blood, secretion, organs, or other bodily fluid of an infected animal. EVD has been documented in people who handled infected chimpanzees, gorillas, and forest antelopes, both dead and alive. In Cote d'Ivoire, there are small.
Yeah. So even
as for the fatality,
exactly.
and as for the
So-
fatality rate when it comes to Ebola, it's way far way outweighed. So like in concluding, what I'm just saying is that it's a wake-up call
All right.
to Ghana as a country and the Africa as a
Very well.
continent.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll move to the second topic, which has to do. Yes, sir.
Dolja, I just want to add something small.
Please.
This one not being political, but Kwame, the reality is that we have a problem as a people. I don't understand, Kwame. When you go around the country, you see a lot of things that are happening, and authorities seems unconcerned about it. But Kwame, when the effects is now happening, then we tend to blame ourselves. Mr. Hinaku. We, Kwame, long before, we have been having infrastructure and other development issues. But the ability as a state to maintain those things is the problem. Kwame, long before, we should have decided as a country that every region in this country, even though we have hospitals across the country, but we are going to have a specialized hospital which will be equipped and furnished with modern equipment and be able to sustain this hospitals because of what we are experiencing today. But Kwame, we don't have time. We don't care about what happened. Even where they have it, we saw how they are finding it difficult to get it. So COVID is a wake-up call that there's no point, but we have to be planning ahead as a people. So when the president, in his wisdom, promised 88 hospitals, it is something that as Ghanaians we have to welcome and continue to pray for the president and him to be able to deliver on this. Not just to try to downplay that and play politics with it. Yes, of course, we make a whole lot of noise about the University of Ghana Medical Center. But today nobody needs to tell the other how significant that facility is today, alongside Rich, etc., etc. But Kwame, in all, we have also done well as a people. When COVID started, there were only 2 testing centers across the country where samples has to be traveled from Takoradi, Wa, or Lora in the Upper West region to Kumasi or Accra to be able to test. Yeah. And it takes a longer time to get the results. And the infection rate were just high, especially through contact tracing. But Kwame, today I think if we go to every region now, we have been able to put a testing center, even in some districts in this country. So we have done well. So my point is, because we have acted on emergency, why don't we sustain them? Maybe we may be out of COVID, but we don't know what next. Though we are not praying, because we're not praying for COVID before it strikes. So that is why we will not be praying for any other disease before it strikes. But why can't we let our public health system functional and make sure we give them whatever that the public health sector need, so that they can be able to contain some of this thing as if it happens, if it so happens. So, Kwame, I think that yes, there must be emergency measures and there must be a long-term plan to be able to guide ourselves and cushion ourselves as a people. So, with the promise of the 88 hospital and 6 regional hospital and the 6 newly created, I think that is a welcome news. And my brother would also be happy to see more of University of Ghana Hospital across some parts of the country, so that maybe that is not the only place that will be treating VIPs in this country.
All right. Thank you very much. Mr. Neke, yes, all right.
I tend
So we could leave this and we move.
I tend to agree with him a bit, and I tend to agree with Mr. Delali that we should build upon what the existing. So I don't know which districts the 88 hospitals were going to go. But we say we don't have district hospitals there.
But
I'm coming. Hold on.
The statement was clear.
No.
Districts that have no hospital.
Yeah,
that is where the hospital.
Hold on. No,
I think let him advance.
I think that there's some form of health centers in those how do you call it,
districts, yeah,
which could have been can be upgraded to district level.
No, but that is
no.
the same.
Which can be upgraded to district level. So it is not always that we have to go and put brick to mortar before we can see that something is being done. For me, that's one. Okay. Then number 2, it is not everything that should be taken up to the level of the political level. What is our bureaucracy doing? The states in Europe and elsewhere, they've been able to organize their state with the bureaucracy in such a way that no matter the problems and crises at the political level, they still function. Example is Italy, where almost every year they get a new government. Yeah. Every year, governments, that's the political regime is changed. But still, it is the 6th most industrialized country in the world. Why? Because the bureaucracy functions. The bureaucracy works because they have the state architecture has been built in such a way that it does not matter who the prime minister is.
Look at Trump. I mean,
yes,
it's been done to him. Yeah.
Yeah, the state worked in the United States despite all the ups and downs of Trump, and that is what we should be aiming at, and that's what, unfortunately, since 1966 we have truncated. And
I think that Oseche Mensah appears to share in that assertion, and he avers that look, it appears that we need a constitutional overhaul. That is the only way we'll begin to embrace the level of development that we envisage to have in the nearest foreseeable future. Albeit that his argument only limited, was limited to the Electoral Commission and commissioner and the commissioners and the appointments, etc. I want for us to expand.
That was an example.
That was an example.
Yeah,
I'm saying that this
long
particular
before this, he has been
but this particular story,
but
this particular story that I'm referring to, I'm making reference to, has got to do with the example that he gave relative to the appointment of the Electoral Commission or the commissioner and the commissioners. And he says that at the time when Madame Charlotte Osei was going to replace Dr. Aferijan, he was of the firm belief that former President Mahama should have done so in consultation with Parliament, for instance, that all the people who were nominated, all the nominees, could have been sent to Parliament for proper vetting to be done by the representative of the people, and then once somebody emerges as the Electoral Commissioner, everybody will be satisfied, knowing that at least the representation of the people were directly involved in that process. Now, that didn't happen. When Charlotte left, so, of course, in his estimation, that caused a lot of mistrust for Charlotte Osei, for which reason the MPP at the time felt that Charlotte Osei was going to pander to the whims and caprices of the NDC and was going to do things to favor the NDC. Fast forward, MPP gets the opportunity to come into office, and they also somehow find everything wrong with Charlotte Osei and how she operated that office, found a way of getting her out, brought in the current commissioner and the commissioners. And it appears that the same cyclical mistrust is happening. Now, the NDC appears not to also trust the current Electoral Commission because it is Nana Akufo-Addo who appointed the commissioner and the commissioners. So, in his estimation, this issue has to be dealt with because once the Constitution settles or finalizes, this particular problem, then nobody will begin to question whether or not this person can be trusted or this person cannot be trusted. Then the Constitution itself will determine how the processes should go and who is qualified to do what in this nation. That is one aspect of it. And I'm sure there are several other aspects that Mr. Heneku would like to address his mind to. And I'm sure you're going to help us, expand the argument. I don't want us to limit the conversation only to the appointment, for instance, of the Electoral Commission. I have every reason to also question even the appointment of Chief Justices in this country. You understand? So I think that this presents us an opportunity to have an open, passionate, and I'm saying passionate because it's about Ghana, conversation about the way forward for our dear nation Ghana, the Constitution, and how we can protect the sanctity of the Constitution without necessarily taking undue advantage of the loopholes that there exist in this particular document that we've been using to govern ourselves for some time now. Please.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I think that what's his name? Oseche Mensah Bonsu has limited himself only the question of trust.
Yeah.
But I think that is wider than trust.
Right.
In the first place, a public office is a public office. Yes, I'm a known CPP member. If I'm put in charge of a public office, that public office does not tend to be a CPP public office. It is a Ghanaian public office. So in spite of my political inclinations, the rules and regulations regulating that public office and the fact that that public office must work for the Ghanaian people is sacrosanct. It must be there. So yes, people can appoint people to certain positions, but those people, one must understand that they don't hold a personal allegiance, that it is not patronage towards the one who appointed them, and that they hold allegiance to the people of Ghana. So that is number one. Number two, let us be very frank, his narrative was not very correct. His narrative was not very correct. When Charlotte Osei was appointed, yes, the MPP people were not happy. The law didn't say that Parliament should be consulted, although I think otherwise, because our CPP manifesto believes that even the Public Service Commission should take part in the appointment process for such constitutional bodies. But Charlotte Osei did not conduct herself in such a way that the elections of 2016 would be thrown into doubt, would be opposed by half of the people.
don't think he didn't.
No, hold on.
No, let me finish. So, just make your point. Make your point. Make your point.
You understand? She did not. So the reasons why she was removed was personal to the MPP when they came to power. It was out of vindictiveness. It was out of the fact that they didn't appoint her, in spite of the fact that she presided over their victory to come into power. But she was the electoral commissioner
Let's not break the chain of thought.
She was the
make your point.
She was the electoral commissioner when the MPP won the 2016 election. So why remove her? But it's because they did not appoint her. That is why they removed her. So here it is not about the fact about they being appointed. They not appointing her alone. They didn't trust her alone. They should have trusted her when they won. But they went beyond that to be vindictive, to remove her. Put somebody there whose, actions and decisions have been contested by another section of the political, stakeholders. Seriously. You understand? So when you talk of trust, and you talk of trust alone, you make the whole thing quite pedestrian. That's two. Then number three, he was talking about longevity in Parliament.
Yeah.
Look, being in Parliament is at the pleasure of the people of this country.
Yeah.
But what I would like to add is the separation of powers. The truth of the matter is that in the beginning, all the three functions of the arms of government was with the executive, the monarchy, etc., etc. There was a fight against it. The English had to even cut off the head of a king in order to bring about the supremacy of Parliament. Later on, the judiciary also came on its own before Montesquieu and others propounded the theory of the separation of powers, and it came in its own early in the French Republic, the French Revolution. But the truth of the matter is that when you look at our constitution, most of the powers has been given to the executive. Parliament has been made subservient, and the judiciary, because they rely on the executive for appointment and they rely on Parliament for money, that's the budget, approval of budget, they've also become subservient. Indeed, the executive has become very powerful under this constitution, able to dispense patronage. And we saw it in the United States of America, Trump. If you oppose him, you will be asked to resign or he will sack you. Right up to even lower levels of in the federal system. He was sacking them and replacing them if you say anything which went against them. That is exactly what is happening in our country, where the bureaucracy itself has been attacked. We have created a political layer on top of the bureaucracy, and the bureaucracy can hardly be heard. First, when you talk of Office of Head of Civil Service, you are talking of a machinery where policy emanates from. Now it is only a human resource entity. Policy, which is thought of, which is formulated, which comes up for it to be debated, no more comes from the bureaucracy. It all now emanating from the political class. And so it is short term. It is not long term. So it is not sustainable, and it destroys our state. Yes, I agree with Mr. Mensah Bonsu that we should take a look at our constitution. But we should take a look at our constitution to make Parliament stronger. We should take a look at our constitution to make the institutions of state stronger. The Public Services Commission in being part of the appointing process for constitutional bodies, other than just the executive being able to dispense patronage.
I know that, and all the things that you've stated here are a truism. And I also know that, people who have been appointed to assume some level of authority within the public institutions must discharge their obligations without recourse to anybody, right? And of course, with recourse to the Constitution and not to any individual. I agree with all of that. But Mr. Eneku, you would also agree with me that, albeit that what I'm about to say has no derivative in the Constitution or in any other law that is supposed to, govern the administration of all the public institutions. But we do know that once Mr. Eneku is the one who appointed Kwame Owusu, so even if Mr. Eneku does not demand of Kwame Owusu to do something for him, Kwame Owusu is inclined to do that thing for Mr. Eneku, even if that request has not been made. So the point that I'm trying to make is that why is it that we don't create a situation where the Constitution itself will determine how appointment will be made, right? And that appointment will be made on the back of the acceptance of the people, which is through Parliament, for instance, so that, let's say, the assumption, this is an unfounded assumption, that the EC will always be doing the bidding, for instance, of the government that appoints it. So why don't we create a system in the Constitution which makes it almost impossible for anybody to operate such that there will be doubt at all in the minds of anybody to think that a publicly appointed or elected officer will pander to a political party because they appointed the person.
Yeah, Kwame, the truth of the matter is that we are unable to separate our personal allegiances from the public interest. So the fact that one has been appointed to a position does not mean that you break the law in order to satisfy the personal interest of the one who appointed you. You understand? And that is why we are saying that the Constitution should be tweaked in such a way that one, Parliament and other institutions of state should be more involved in the appointment to constitutional bodies. But again, this might be radical, and this, might not be in the mainstream. The powers of impeaching public officers and of recall of legislative officers should be enshrined in our Constitution, so that it is not only you serving at the pleasure of the one who appointed you, but it is you who serving at the pleasure of the people of Ghana. So that even this electoral commissioner, if a section of the peoples of Ghana are not satisfied with her work, we should be able to take signatures and have a vote and remove her. It should apply to members of parliament. It should even apply to the president.
So the Constitution.
Later. So the point so there should be a right of recall.
Yeah.
In the Constitution.
So what you are saying is that the Constitution that created them must cure the mischief, if you like.
Of course.
Yeah.
There must be a right of recall for all public officers, even by the people, the ordinary people of this our country. Let's organize. Let's collect signatures. If it reaches a certain threshold, let there be an election to see whether we still have confidence in that public officer or not. And when we don't have confidence, let's remove the person. So the person does not serve only at the pleasure of the person who appointed that person, but serves at the pleasure of we.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I agree with you because oftentimes, and we will come to because oftentimes the perception is that I can't be removed. For instance, there's nothing that will create a bottleneck for me to operate. So I operate at my own will. There's latitude for me to do whatever I want to do because there is no punishment flowing from my actions and inactions. Even till today, it has become practically impossible to go to any public institution, even though RTI bill has been passed, to still demand of them to give you some documents. They can decide not to give you the documents and nothing will happen. So I think I agree with Mr. Eneku when he says that, listen, yes, government has the power to appoint, right? But the people must have the power to call. That's how do you say it?
Recall.
Recall. And say that, no, we don't like this person. And by virtue of that, 2/3 of something, we are voting you out. We should be able to have that system. But let me, Mujib, come to you, get your general impression about Osecheme Sabosu's statement.
That has been my long-held position for some time now. But I want to say, I think because of time constraint, the Honorable Member of Parliament tried to limit himself and single-handedly picked the issue of the electoral commission
and the longevity of members of Parliament.
Kwame, I am for the review or amendments or changes to the 1992 Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. I am for it today, I am for it tomorrow, and I'll continue to be for it, Kwame. Because having also have something to do with the Constitution and looking at our current present situation, I've realized that the Constitution is built around the president. And Kwame, when this issue of election dispute started in America, and they were below, I listened to a military officer when he was interviewed, and he said they have sworn an oath to defend the people of America, to defend the flag, to defend the country, and not any individual. So it was just inferring that if President Trump, which they believe genuinely has lost the election, mess up, they will deal with him and save the image and then save the people of America. And I said, wow, this is a country. Kwame, elsewhere, it's human institution. Take Electoral Commission. Kwame, we can design our constitution in such a way that through the processes, we can have an electoral commissioner which will go through parliamentary processes and be vetted without the hands of the president. And the man sitting there or the woman sitting there will also be convinced that these are my terms and this is my term limit. Whether I have to do, I'm doing right and I'm serving the people of Ghana, irrespective of whether Kwame is the president or Dilali, he or she has no hands in me. Kwame, why do you get the police professional? You can only get the police professional when they have systems within themselves producing who is who and who is IGP or who is what and what. But it's natural law, Kwame. When I come here and you appoint me to be here, Kwame, whatever it is, even at a point when you are going wrong, it is difficult for me to draw your attention based on the fact that Kwame appointed me. Mr. Eneku, let's be very real about it. No, but let's, of course, but we see it on daily basis. We see it's human institution. But Kwame, that is, Kwame, look at Shraj. All these bosses should have a way of getting them. That Development Planning Commission, the constitutional creation bodies, Kwame, should be insulated from the whims and caprices of our presidents. This is something I have held the view. Maybe some people might also have their own contrary view. But as we want to move forward, as we are all talking of building institutions and make sure the institutions really works. So I think that it is time we have to be looking at cutting the powers of the president through our constitution, But leaving it as it is now, whether you like it or not, everything revolves around the president of the Republic of Ghana. It is not because it is Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. Right from Rawley's time, it's the same thing up to today. Nana might go, somebody might come, but if the constitution hasn't been changed, the person also will the same power. Kwame, that is number one. Secondly, Mr. Eneku, you have been fortunately in the system for a longer period of time and you have witnessed many government. Can't we have members of parliament doing their parliamentary duty, and we can have some few people as ministers of state instead of appointing ministers from members of parliament? Can't we have that? Or if we structure it that way, the system, we can go. We can, I don't want to go there because the argument is, Kwame, we can everywhere in the world. There's another theories that are saying that we don't have strict separation of powers in every part of the world. That is where some have argued, even though that is not the position of Montesquieu. But they felt that Montesquieu, having stated the principles in somewhere in the United Kingdom, and what was happening in his home native country in France, felt that they must be strict. But in actual sense, when it comes to practicability, it is impossible for those organs to just act on their own way. They must at a point be what? Linkages and crosses. But that notwithstanding, my point is, Mr. Enoku, you want to be lawmaker. Vow, get your position, go and be lawmaker. Let somebody also be a minister of agriculture. You can't be lawmaker and still be a minister of agriculture. Then how do you hold yourself accountable? I think Parliament also serves as check and balances. So when you are found foul at the Minister of Agri and you are also a member of Parliament, how then do we hold you responsible? I hope you are getting the argument. Kwame, let's go back to the court.
Yeah.
Our court system.
Yeah.
The apex courts, the Supreme Court, the High Court, the Court of Appeal. In our situation, if you take the Constitution, Kwame, all these justices has to be what? Appointed by the President. But Kwame, can't we have a way, a different way?
Internally.
Producing all these courts judges.
You know, and
which will not have a much control by the executive.
And I'm sure that when we get to what Arthur Kennedy said relative to I think it will be very revealing.
Yeah.
Because whether we like it or not, and people have been picked up for speaking truth to power. Yeah. Truth to power.
But Kwame, that is has.
Whether we like it or
some
not.
has to
Whether
sacrifice.
we like it or not.
No, some has to sacrifice.
Yeah, but you see,
they
this is a very foolish sacrifice.
Yeah, no.
Because when you're speaking the truth,
yeah.
When you're speaking the truth, in times like this, in times when we are still building the fragile democracy,
yeah.
I don't think that this is the time to be creating unnecessary enemies, which will come back to hurt the system.
Yeah.
Because you see, the system of tit for tat is what is still, crippling us. That you did it to me 4 years ago.
No, so me too.
Yes, but
why should that be so?
But who is doing it in greater proportions? It's your party.
No, but Kwame, don't politicize it.
No, it's not a problem.
I don't have a problem.
But
there's no problem here. Let me be very frank.
You guys are doing it in greater proportions.
Don't say that, Kwame.
When you
say that, you spoil the discussion.
Oh, my brother, listen to me and you will appreciate what I'm saying. When you came, you decided to close down radio stations that are voices of dissent. You close them down. This is a known fact. And are you telling me that if NDC had won this 2020 elections, they would come and close down radio and TV stations that are closely linked to the MPP? Are you telling me that wouldn't have happened? Are you also telling me that journalists who spoke truth to power, which journalists were attacked, and some of them had to even flee for their lives, some of them murdered and maimed, do you think that if NDC had come to power, they wouldn't still continue to do that against some people who will speak against their policies? So what system are we creating? We're creating a system where...
Kwame, I'm coming. Kwame, you see, you are only trying to rush on the issues. Don't rush, relax. Kwame, the point is, when Chairman
what is the rush here, respectfully?
You just mentioned we are talking of functional institutions in Ghana or elsewhere in the world. We wish we would have had them in our country.
Yes.
When we sat here, we discussed our first topic.
Yes.
Mr. Heneku emphasized on enforcement.
Yes.
Kwame, you and I agree, because we have something to do with the Ghanaian law, that there are more beautiful laws in our constitution, on our statutes, but because of implementation and enforcement of those laws, that is where we are today. Kwame, let's be very frank. Who got power and just woke up deliberately and decided to close radio A, B, C, D? We all saw how National Communication Authority came in. And those particular radio stations or TV stations were not the only one. There were many that infringed the laws governing the operations and the conduct of media houses in this country. Then they say A, B, C, D. Satisfy the requirement. When the requirement, and these radio stations admitted that they were indeed in breach of the law. Because of politics, when you go against the law, you should be allowed to go, Mr. Unoku, because today is MPP acting, a National Communication Authority, which is a government institution. Today, if MPP is out of power, if CPP come by, it's still the same National Communication Authority. enforcing their own laws. And we are reading political meaning into it. But Kwame, I'm coming.
The law allows for remediation, isn't it?
You see,
you're a lawyer.
But they went to court. They went to court.
And they were allowed
to still in court. Nobody prevented you from. Kwame, I didn't even want to go there in the first place because those even are minor issues.
No, they are not. They are not. With the grace of respect, you know the important role that media plays in any governance structure. But with the grace of respect to you, the point I was trying to make that you didn't follow was that it is precisely because of the appointment of some leaders or some heads of some public institutions, which is why it has become very impossible for people to operate from the heart of the constitution, but operate on the whims of political players and actors. That's the point I was trying to make. That even if you look at the policing system, who appoints the IGP? So for so long as the person who appointed the IGP is in power, you do not expect, for instance, the police or some of them to act in the general interest of everybody. And we have seen that happen. We have seen that occasion before our very eyes. That is the point I was trying to make.
On the same page on that. Kwame, I am on the same page with you on that. I hope you are. Kwame, don't also rule out the fundamental human right of the individual. If you go against the law in dealing with me, then I also have the right to go to the law, to use the law, and make sure you do the right thing.
This is the ideal situation.
Exactly.
But the practical situation, is that what happens? This is the ideal situation. I get you.
That is how it's supposed to be.
Is that what it is?
But Kwame, that is what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
I hope that is what it's supposed to be. But Kwame, in terms of appointment of certain individuals to certain key institutions in Ghana, I believe that we have to manage and get those things out of the clutches of our president. It is very, very important. Kwame, other than that, we will continue to wallow in what we are experiencing now. Because everything is around one person. Everything is around one person. Yes, of course, the president should have certain powers. That one is right.
All right.
But at least I want to one day be seeing the American situation, where in a clear situation like there's a presidential dispute, the system, having realized that Kwame genuinely won, and that is what the people of Ghana has voted for, whether you like it or not, you can sit there. But when you sit there and realize that there's nobody around you, the system has moved to Kwame. You yourself will advise yourself and move out of the
I get your point.
Nobody will take
a brilliant
submission. That is my prayer.
That's a brilliant
and we can get that. But Kwame, what happened to the constitutional review? Well, they are during a time view of some portions.
VCRAC Crab was in charge of that. Yeah.
It will not inure to their benefit, but I think that there should be public outcry. We should
part of it, the review.
Yeah,
Part of it.
the public.
The political party.
No, that is it. But who told you it is all what the public are saying is in the interest of the political class?
Well, that's
who want his powers to be taken from?
Yeah,
it will be taken away from him.
Yeah,
but we have to make sure. Even the entrenched clauses, we have to go to referendum and make sure we get them changed in our interest.
And I think that Osei Sabos made that point.
It's very important, Kwame.
Clearly, that even the way we change some of the provisions,
we have to change it, Kwame.
Yeah,
and it will be a lead campaigners and get those.
And you know, Mr. Eneku would I think Mr. Eneku would agree with me.
When it comes to issues like this, Mr. Eneku doesn't have anything to say because it was more rigid even under the system.
My point is that
he's introducing another topic.
My point is that Mr. Eneku would tend to agree with me.
It's even more relaxed on the
you
are talking of radio process. You just recently
hold on. I'm saying that Mr. Eneku would tend to agree on the basis of the fact that I think that the constitution must be a living thing.
Yeah.
It must evolve. And now we are in 2021. The constitution that was prepared in 1992, which constitution at the time met the demands and the needs of the people? Well, I mean, majority of the people, if you can say that, because it was just the ordinary people who put together the constitution. But I think we've moved beyond that. And the threshold should not be the same threshold as it was back in the day. We should find a way of expanding the constitution to accommodate the current needs of the people. Which is why we are using the law, because the law is the law. If the constitution says 1 + 1 is 2, that's it.
Kwame, you are right.
But we should find a way of modifying it, so that it will meet the growing needs of the people.
Kwame, when I take the Criminal Offences Act,
Yeah.
29,
Yeah.
and I look at the punishment method that should be meted out to public officials who squander or embezzle funds. I think, I said, but even in my lecture hall, I told my lecturer that this is not deterrent enough. That is why the people keep on stealing our money.
And that's why Parliament.
And I think recently the Attorney General has gone to Parliament.
I was pushing
to get it more
entrenched.
more punitive measures than what we have now.
I had the opportunity of being interviewed on Metro TV one evening when I was doing my Forum for Accountability lectures. And then I told them that I don't even understand why Auditor General doesn't have prosecutorial authority. They should be able to have it because they have the facts.
Yeah.
They can prepare a better statement of claim.
Yeah.
They can go to court.
Yeah.
So why don't they have prosecutorial authority? They have to set up.
But even in this,
let me
situation now, Kwame, it is not bad because
Supreme Court.
they can only show those things to Parliament, and Parliament can give them the
let me come to you. Let me come to you, Sawako.
You just took the wind out of my sail when you said the Constitution is a living organism. I've read a lot of articles from, certain established individuals in this country. Professor H. Prempeh have argued that the Constitution is a living organism, and at any point in time, whatever we do must be inconsistent with what is happening. And I've always maintained the fact that, one, those of us who are not lawyers, we always hear people talk about the fact that there's a spirit and the letter of the Constitution. That's what we always hear. And sometimes I always say that when you read Article 23 of the 1992 Constitution, which talk about administrative bodies, administrative officials shall act fairly and reasonably and comply with the requirements imposed on them by law. This is what the Constitution says. So anybody who has the privilege being appointed by a president, even in as much as the president appointed you, to pander to his whims and caprices. The point is this: the Constitution imposed on you to act fairly as required by law. So your first and foremost obligation is to the good people of this Republic of Ghana, not an individual who appointed you. So that is why I'm saying that there's a letter and the spirit of the Constitution. What that the spirit tells you? That you have to do things that must be inconsistent to protect the interest of the good people of the Republic of Ghana, not the interest of an individual. That's why, if you read a Constitution, 296 of the 1992 Constitution, Kwame, I'm not a lawyer. It says Supreme Court judges have a power to discretion. Is that not what it says?
Yeah.
But it said that discretion must be exercised, right? Must not be exercised capriciously, whimsically, and arbitrarily. Is that not what the Constitution says? So, in as much as you have the right to discretion, that discretion must not be exercised arbitrarily, whimsically, and capriciously. It must be exercised candidly. That's what the Constitution says. So, the mere fact that you're a Supreme Court judge, you have that right to discretion. It must be done candidly without doing it whimsically. So, you have an instances, I have always maintained that this Constitution that was drafted, I believe, like we argue that it's a living organism, maybe we need to do a lot of amendments. Because if you appoint Electoral Commission, and suppose that the reason why you appointed me was for me to do your bidding. And when you have demonstrated to that Electoral Commission that your predecessor, my predecessor, can run out of the blue with a petition from an invisible, individual. My predecessor was given the exit, was shown the exit. Kwame, don't you think the successor will also come to appreciate the fact that what happened to my predecessor, the same thing can happen to me? So long as I don't pander to your whims and caprices, the fate that befell my predecessor, the same thing can happen to me. And that is the only reason why the successor will only pander to the whims and caprices of his appointer. Because he have proven to me that, listen, what you did to Charlotte Osei, the same thing can be done to me. If I don't, succumb to whatever that is coming from you. And you have instances where I always say that, for instance, if you listen to Ghanaians, go out there and sample the views of Ghanaians. We have had even an instances, Kwame, a former Director General of the Ghana Law School, have admitted in an interview that to him, most of judges appointed to the apex court of the land, when you read critically do analysis with respect to their ruling has always been in favor of that particular regime that appointed them to the apex court of the land. That is an admission that was made by the Director General of what we call the Ghana Law School. And you have an instance, Kwame, if not for the President of the Republic of Ghana appointing the IGP and the with Chief of Defense Staff, you think what happened in Ayawa's West Wagon? You think the police would have sit down and watched? You think the Chief of Defense Staff would have sit down and watched? You think in an election that military officers are not supposed to storm a registration center or collation center? You think if the CDS was not appointed by the president and was appointed by, let's say, what do you call it? They have their own mechanisms of appointing somebody or elevating somebody to the Chief of Defense Staff. You think some of the things that we witnessed would have happened? And in as much as the president have power, an unfettered power, executive power, and what have you not, Kwame, over the years, Professor Moss demonstrated, President Mahama demonstrated, President Kufuor demonstrated that in as much as I bet all the power that is at my beck and call, I exercise it with certain level of caution. And that is not what we witness under President Nana Akufo-Addo. It's something even MPP members of the record will admit that the things that we witness under President Nana Akufo-Addo, it's not what we witnessed during President Kufuor, during President Mama, during Professor John Evans Atamos. Kwame, you remember during Professor Monster, he has the power to even ask the MMDCs to proceed on leave. But he allowed them to stay for almost about 6 months. To even to the annoyance of NDC members. Because he wants to deepen our democracy. But what did we witness?
Right.
So what we are just simply saying is, I agree, what do you call it, the Honorable Chairman Sabuchi. The Constitution, we ought to amend it. There are portions of the Constitution which has become inimical to our very development as a country. And I think it's more conscious. It doesn't help in fostering development. And I think that I agree.
Thank you. We need to go to the Supreme Court now. I'm told that the court is in session. But let me bring to the attention of our viewers that we were supposed to discuss COVID-19 vaccination plan. Government estimating about 295 million Ghana cedis for 20 million people. I just wanted to bring to the attention of Ghanaians that we have already spent about 600 million for health infrastructure, district and regional hospitals. We have already spent 1.34 billion on COVID-19 preparedness plan. I don't know what it is, 1 and 2. We have already spent 220 million on fumigation of schools and PPE for education sector. We have spent 80 million as 50% allowance of basic salaries. 50 million spent on sanitation and market fumigation. And we are yet to spend 295 million Ghana cedis. I'll leave your doubts in your head to be cleared by yourselves in the course of the day. Let me leave you, but I saw a video of a gentleman, I think he's in one of those schools, who was gasping for breath. And I was teary. Yesterday I cried, actually, when I saw that video of a young boy. I think he's in senior high school. And the mother had taken the boy to the hospital. The guy had COVID. Yes, he had COVID. Small boy. Yes, I'll show you the video. Have you seen the video? You guys have seen the video. I wept and I was sad. I think the president ought to begin to look at things differently and let's see how we can together protect posterity. It's very, very important. And if Parliament has even suspended sitting, then why can't we close the schools? Anyway, Mujib, thank you very much for your time. Indeed, I'm grateful you were able to join us. Mr. Eneku, thank you always. And my friend Delali Sawako, thank you as well. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Of February, in which we seek your leave to reopen our case. We respectfully